The rusty nail wasn't much to look at, but Finn Reeves didn't care as long as the salvage hauler kept its atmospheric seal and its engines running. 19 months without a major score had left his accounts as empty as the void he drifted through, which was why the derelict's energy signature had him practically dancing in his pilot's chair. "Tell me I'm not hallucinating, Scrapper," he said to the ship's rudimentary AI. "Negative, Captain." Vessel detected. Unknown configuration. Estimated age, 300+ standard years. Finn whistled low. Ancient tech sometimes fetched ridiculous prices. "From collectors." He guided the rusty nail alongside the derelict, which hung motionless against the backdrop of an uncharted nebula. Its hull was sleek, despite centuries of micro-impacts. The metal, a strange, iridescent black that seemed to swallow light rather than reflect it. "No identification markings," he muttered, easing his ship into a docking approach. Design could be first expansion era. The airlock cycled, and Finn stepped onto the ancient vessel, suited up and clutching his salvaged pulse pistol. The beam from his helmet light caught dust particles suspended in zero gravity, making it seem like he was walking through a cloud of frozen stars. Life support inactive, but hull integrity stable, he reported to his ship's log. No signs of he stopped as his light caught a symbol etched into a bulkhead, a spiral pattern that seemed to shift and change the longer he looked at it. "Scrapper, run a search on this symbol. No match is found in standard databases." "Figures," Finn muttered, moving deeper into the ship. The vessel's interior reminded him of a temple more than a spacecraft. Corridors curved organically, and the walls were etched with similar spiral patterns. He followed them to what appeared to be the central chamber, a vast circular room with a platform in the center. Finn's breath caught in his throat. On the platform was a woman, suspended in a field of shimmering energy. Her features were sharp and severe, her midnight black hair floating in the containment field like it was underwater. Around her wrists and ankles were bands of metal that pulsed with a faint blue light. "Scrapper, are you seeing this?" "Affirmative. Human female, detected in stasis. Scanning." But something was off about her. It's the way her closed eyes seemed to track his movement, the subtle tension in her jaw. Finn approached cautiously. The tip of his salvaged blade and antique he'd won in a card game on Proxima Station accidentally. Brushing against the energy field, the field sparked. The bands around the woman's wrists flickered. Scrapper, is that supposed to happen?" Before the AI could respond, the energy field collapsed with a sound like thunder and vacuum. The woman's eyes snapped open, eyes so vividly violet they seemed to glow in the dim light. She dropped to her knees on the platform, gasping for breath. The bands around her wrists sparked and then shattered, pieces floating away in the zero gravity. The ship around them groaned, systems awakening that had been dormant for centuries. "What have you done?" the woman demanded, her voice rough from disuse, but carrying an undeniable authority. I didn't mean to." Finn stammered. An alarm blared through the ship. Red emergency lights bathed the chamber. "They know I'm free," she said, standing with fluid grace that belied her centuries of imprisonment. "They're coming." "It's coming?" Finn asked, backing away slowly. "The Guardians." She fixed him with those violet eyes. "You broke my chains." With that, she nodded at his blade, which was now humming strangely at his side. "That makes you responsible for what happens next. Look, I'm just a salvager. I don't want any trouble." A massive impact rocked the ship. Through the viewport behind the platform, Finn saw a vessel materializing from what appeared to be a fold in space itself, fangular, predatory, and bristling with weapons. "Too late," she said, grabbing his arm. "I am Nira Valkyr, last High Guardian of the Helian Dominion. And you, whoever you are, have just become the most hunted man in the galaxy." The escape pod from the ancient vessel ejected with a violent shudder, tumbling through space as the Guardian ship opened fire. Inside, Finn was pressed against the curved wall, watching in horror as energy beams sliced through the derelict he'd been exploring minutes before. "My ship," he shouted. "The rusty nail is still docked there." Nira's fingers danced over controls that seemed to respond to her touch alone. "Your vessel is the least of our concerns," she said, not looking up. "The Guardians will dismantle it atom by atom, searching for me. For us, Finn ran his hands through his disheveled brown hair. This is insane. Yesterday I was just a salvager. With debt problems. Now I'm a target. Nira finished for him. The blade you carry activated my release protocol. To the Guardians, that makes you my accomplice. The pod's engines flared to life, propelling them away from the pursuing vessel. Finn studied Nira as she piloted. In the pod's dim lighting, he could see details he'd missed before the feint. Geometric tattoos that traced her jawline, the strange metallic thread woven into her simple black garments. Hades Point is the nearest settlement, he said finally. Mining colony, not exactly friendly, but they don't ask questions. Nira nodded. It will suffice. They landed on Hades' Point 12 hours later, the pod systems nearly exhausted. The mining colony was carved into the face of an asteroid, a haphazard collection of pressure domes and repurposed freighter holes, connected by transparent tubes. Everything was coated in a fine layer of mineral dust that gave the place a perpetual twilight feeling. Keep your head down, Finn muttered as they entered the main concourse. This place is crawling with mercenaries, Nira finished, eyeing a group of heavily augmented figures at a nearby bar. Their kind has changed little in 3 centuries. They found lodging in a cramped room at the colony's lower levels, paying with the last of Finn's credits. Once alone, Nira examined the blade he carried.
House.
The whisper blade, she said softly, running her finger along its edge. I watched these destroyed. All of them. It was a lucky find in a card game, Finn replied. I who lost it to me said it was just decorative. Never expected it to. Wake up an ancient warrior woman. The corner of Nira's mouth twitched in. What might have been the beginning of a smile? The blade recognizes bloodlines. Shouldn't have responded to you unless... She frowned, studying his face more intently. Their eyes met, and Finn felt something stir inside him, a strange connection he couldn't explain. The moment was broken by a thunderous announcement echoing through the colony's public address system. Attention. All residents and visitors, substantial reward offered for information leading to the capture of 2 fugitives, human male, approximately 30 standard years, female species designation, Helion. Nira was on her feet instantly. We need to move. They slipped out just as the first mercenaries reached their level. Finn led them through service corridors he'd learned about during previous visits to Hades Point. The sound of pursuit growing. Behind them was a freight elevator at the end of this section, he panted. Leads to the landing bays. They rounded a corner and found themselves facing 3 bounty hunters, weapons raised. Don't move, the leader growled, a vicious smile revealing filed teeth. Easy money today. Nira moved like liquid lightning. Before Finn could blink, she had disarmed the first hunter and was using him as a shield against the others. The whisper blade hummed in Finn's hand, suddenly alive with purpose. Acting on instinct he didn't know he possessed. He parried a shot from the second hunter and slashed across the man's armor, which split like paper. How did I? He began, staring at the blade in shock. Later, Nira called, dispatching the third hunter with a precision strike. Move. They fought their way to a small cargo ship, stealing it amidst a hail of blaster fire. As they broke atmosphere, Nira turned to Finn, her violet eyes glinting with something between suspicion and hope. You used the blade like you were born to it, she said quietly. That shouldn't be possible. Finn stared at his hands, still trembling. With adrenaline, nothing about this should be possible. As they accelerated away from Hades Point, Nira's expression softened almost imperceptibly. There is a place we can go, a place where my people might still exist. And then what? Finn asked. Then we discover why the universe conspired to bring you to my prison after 300 years, she replied, her hand briefly touching his. And why the blade that should have died with my world sings for you. The abandoned moon hung in space like a forgotten memory, its surface a maze of ruins and overgrown vegetation. Finn guided their stolen vessel through the atmosphere, following coordinates Nira provided. The Grand Temple should be here, she said, pointing to a massive structure half swallowed by the forest. If any of my people survived, they would have maintained it. They landed in a clearing nearby. The air was thick with humidity and the scent of unfamiliar flowers. Finn checked his weapon, the whisper blade humming softly at his side. "You never said why you were imprisoned," he ventured as they walked toward the temple. Nira's face hardened. "Because I refused to destroy what I was sworn to protect." Before she could elaborate, movement flickered at the edge of the clearing. Suddenly, they were surrounded by figures in ceremonial armor, weapons trained on them. Their leader stepped forward, a woman with silver streaks in her auburn hair and eyes, the same violet as Nira's. "Impossible," the woman breathed, lowering her weapon. "Nira Valkyr? Petra?" Nira's composure cracked for the first time since Finn had met her. "You were just a child when I... .. The two women embraced, while the other guards maintained their wary stance, particularly toward Finn. "We thought you were lost in the final purge," Petra said, stepping back to examine Nira. "How are you here? How do you look exactly the same?" "Temporal stasis," Nira replied. "The Guardians imprisoned me. This man," she gestured to Finn, "freed me, though not intentionally." Petra's gaze shifted to Finn, then to the blade. His hip, her eyes widened. "A whisper blade. It shouldn't exist." She turned to her guards. "Bring them to the Enclave. The elders must see this." The Enclave was hidden beneath the temple ruins, a thriving community of several hundred people. Living in a vast underground complex, children played in hydroponics gardens while adults worked at strange technologies Finn couldn't identify. All stopped to stare as Nira passed. In the central chamber, 3 elderly figures sat in a semicircle. The oldest, a man whose skin was etched with the same geometric patterns as Nira's, rose shakily to his feet. "The voice returns," he said, his voice surprisingly strong. "Just as the prophecy foretold." "There was no prophecy," Jaran Nira said sharply. "Only contingencies we put in place before the end." The old man smiled thinly. "Contingencies that have become prophecies over 3 centuries. Nira, you may not have changed, but we have." As night fell, the Enclave held a feast in Nira's honor. Finn found himself seated beside her at the main table, acutely aware of the suspicious glances. From many of the Helians. "They don't trust me," he murmured. "They don't know what to make of you," Nira corrected. "A human wielding a whisper blade defies everything they understand." Later, they walked through the Enclave's memorial garden, illuminated by bioluminescent plants. Nira stopped before a wall inscribed with countless names. "These were my people," she said softly. "The ones who couldn't escape." Finn hesitated, then placed his hand on her shoulder. To his surprise, she didn't pull away. "You were fighting." "A war," he said. "That much I've gathered. But against what? Not what? Who?" Nira turned to face him, their faces closed in the dim light. "We fought ourselves." The Helian civilization split into factions, those who believed our technology should evolve without limits, and those who saw the dangers, and you were... ... "I commanded the conservators," she said. "We sought balance. The progressives wanted to merge consciousness with machine intelligence." They nearly succeeded. Her eyes darkened with memory. "I was betrayed, captured. They couldn't kill me because of what I carried, so they imprisoned me instead." "What did you carry?" Finn asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Nira's hand moved to her chest. "The key. The access codes to the Void Heart, the central node of all Hylian technology. With it, one could control or destroy everything we built." Finn stared at her, understanding dawning. "That's why the Guardians want you back." "Yes," she said. "And why some here?" She glanced back toward the Elder's chamber. "Fear my return will only bring destruction again," the shadows behind them unnoticed. Petra watched with narrowed eyes, her hand tightening around a communication device. "We must leave," Nira announced, bursting into Finn's quarters before dawn. Now Finn rolled out of bed, instinctively reaching for the whisper blade. "What's happened?" "Petra has been communicating with the Guardians," she said, her voice tight. "With betrayal. There are those among my people who believe I should remain imprisoned. They slipped out through maintenance tunnels, emerging on the moon's surface, just as alarms began to sound within the enclave. Their ship, however, was surrounded by armed Helians. "This way," Nira said, pulling Finn toward what appeared to be a solid rock face. At her touch, a hidden door slid open. Emergency evacuation tunnel. It leads to a secondary hangar. The ancient transport they found inside was barely spaceworthy, but Nira's touch brought its systems humming to life. It broke atmosphere. Just as larger ships began launching from the enclave, "They're not pursuing," Finn noted, watching the sensor readings. "They don't need to," Nira replied grimly. "They know where we're going." "And where is that exactly?" "The Vault of Memory. The final repository of Hellion knowledge." She programmed coordinates into the navigation system. It orbits a dead star in what you now call the Marian Nebula. They traveled in tense silence, each lost in thought. After several hours, Finn found Nira in the ship's small observation deck, staring out at the stars. "You knew Petra would betray you," he said. "It wasn't a question, I suspected. Fear is a powerful motivator, even after centuries." To him, the whisper blade, "May I?" Finn handed it to her. In her hands, the blade's surface rippled like liquid metal. "These weapons were synchronized with our genetic code," she explained. "They shouldn't respond to anyone not of Hellion blood." She looked up at him, her violet eyes searching his face. "Yet this one answers to you." "Maybe it's defective," Finn suggested weakly. Nira shook her head. "Before the war, there were ... experiments, attempts to create human-Helion hybrids as diplomatic bridges between our peoples." Finn's pulse quickened. "Are you saying I don't know what you are," she admitted, "but the Vault might?" Vault of Memory was unlike anything Finn had ever seen, a massive ring structure orbiting a collapsed star. Its surface etched with data patterns visible even from a distance. They docked at an automated port, a facility recognizing Nira's genetic signature. Inside, the corridors were lit with a soft blue glow, and the walls themselves seemed to react to their presence, displaying images and text as they passed. "It's watching us," Finn murmured. "Learning," Nira corrected. "The vault is semi-sentient." They reached the central archive, a vast spherical chamber with a control pedestal at its center. As Nira approached, the entire room illuminated, and a holographic figure appeared, a woman, identical to Nira in every way. "Identity confirmed. Nira." "Valkyr," the hologram said. "Warning. Temporal anomaly detected. You have violated containment parameters." "Override code Voidheart Alpha," Nira replied calmly. "Display final archive entry." The hologram paused, then nodded. The chamber darkened, and then filled with images of destruction, Helion cities falling, ships burning in orbit, civilization collapsing. "Progressive faction breached the Voidheart," the hologram narrated. "Partial upload was achieved before containment. 78% of Hellion consciousness was digitized before emergency protocols activated." Finn watched in horror as the images showed the final battle and Nira's capture. "The key could not be extracted," the hologram continued. "Subject Nira Valkyr was placed in temporal stasis. Guardian protocol activated to prevent release." "And the Human Bloodline Project?" Nira asked. The hologram turned to Finn. "Project Diaspora was implemented as final contingency. Genetic material was dispersed among human populations. Dormant Helion genes activated only in presence of compatible whisper tech." Finn staggered back. "I'm some kind of ... backup plan." "Are a bridge," the hologram corrected. "The convergence point between what was and what might be." Before Finn could process this, alarms blared throughout the vault. On the displays around them, Guardian ships appeared, weapons charging. "They've found us," Nira said, turning to Finn with unexpected urgency. "There's no time to explain everything. You must make a choice now." "What choice?" "Whether to run or to stand with me and face what comes next." Her eyes held his, and in them he saw not just determination, but something else, of vulnerability she'd kept hidden until now. Finn's hand closed around the whisper blade, which hummed in response like it was answering a question he hadn't yet asked. "I think I made my choice when I set you free," he said quietly. For the first time, Nira smiled, a real smile that transformed her face. She stepped closer, her hand touching his cheek. "Then let me show you what you've awakened," she whispered. They raced back to where it all began, the ancient derelict ship where Finn had found. Nira, the Guardians had left it intact after their initial attack, maintaining it as a beacon to draw them back. "It's obviously a trap," Finn said as they approached in their stolen vessel. "Of course it is," Nira replied. "That's why they won't expect us to walk right into it." The derelict hung in space exactly as Finn had first seen it, though now he understood the symbols etched into its hollow record of Nira's imprisonment. A warning to those who might find it. They docked, entering through the same airlock Finn had used what felt like lifetimes ago. The ship was no longer dormant. Lights pulsed along its corridors, and the air hummed with energy. "The stasis chamber is our target," Nira explained. "It's connected directly to the Void Heart network. If I can access it, I can reassert control." Over the Guardian ships, they moved cautiously through the vessel, Finn leading with the whisper blade drawn. It glowed brighter with each step, responding to the ship's awakening systems. "You never finished telling me," Finn said, as they paused at a junction. "What exactly is the key you carry?" Nira's hand went to her chest. "Not what? Who?" His eyes. The final upload to the Void Heart wasn't technology, it was consciousness. The collective wisdom of our greatest minds, preserved to guide whoever came after. Inside you, integrated with my neural pathways. I am both vessel and guardian. She smiled faintly. That's why they couldn't kill me. Why they could never let me go. They reached the central chamber where Finn had first found her, the platform. Where she had been suspended was now a column of swirling energy, connected to systems throughout the ship. "The Guardians will be here soon," Nira said, approaching the column. "Once I connect, I'll be vulnerable until the process completes." Finn tightened his grip on the whisper blade. "I'll keep them off you." Nira turned to him, hesitation in her eyes. Then, with unexpected swiftness, she pulled him close and kissed him deeply, fiercely. As if trying to convey in that single moment everything they hadn't had time to say. "For luck," she whispered against his lips. She stepped into the energy column before he could respond. The ship trembled as her consciousness connected with its systems. Displays around the chamber flared to life, showing Guardian vessels converging. On their position, the first boarding party breached the lower levels minutes later. Finn met them in the narrow corridor, the whisper blade singing in his hands. He moved with a skill he'd never known he possessed, the dormant Hellion genes in his blood fully awakened now. Guiding his movements, wave after wave came, and Finn held them back, fighting his way through the ship as systems around him responded to Nira's growing control. Lights flickered, doors sealed and unsealed strategically, helping him funnel the attackers where he could manage them. A massive impact rocked the vessel. Through a viewport, Finn saw the Guardian ships opening fire, trying to destroy the derelict before Nira could complete her task. "Hurry," he muttered, dispatching another attacker. When he finally fought his way back to the central chamber, he found Nira hovering above the platform, surrounded by a web of energy. Her eyes were open but unseeing, focused on something beyond. Physical space. A final Guardian, more heavily armored than the others, crashed through the chamber doors. Finn intercepted him, but this opponent was different, faster, stronger, somehow familiar. "You don't understand what you're protecting," the Guardian said, his voice distorted through his helmet. "If she reconnects with the Void Heart, it begins again. The war, the fall. You've been hunting her for 300 years, Finn grunted, parrying a vicious strike. Maybe it's time for something new." Their blades locked. The Guardian's helmet cracked, revealing a face with the same violet eyes as Nira's, but cold, calculating. "We are the same, she and I," the Guardian said. "Two sides of a war that never ended. You're nothing but a genetic accident, human, a failsafe that should never have activated." With a surge of strength, Finn pushed him back. Maybe that's exactly what the universe needed. Above them, Nira gasped, her eyes focusing again. The energy web around her pulsed once brilliantly, then stabilized. "It's done," she said, her voice resonating strangely. "I have control." The Guardian ships outside stopped firing. On displays around the chamber, they began powering down, their weapons systems going dormant. The Guardian before Finn dropped. To his knees. "What have you done?" "Broken the cycle," Nira said, descending from the platform. "For 3 centuries. You've been locked in programming you couldn't escape. Guardians of a prison no one remembered building." She approached them, her movements fluid, but somehow different, as if she carried more than just herself now. "The Void Heart sees through time," she continued. "It knew someday someone would find me. It waited for the right one." She looked at Finn with a warmth that made his heart race. "Someone who could teach me what I'd forgotten? That protection doesn't always mean imprisonment." The defeated Guardian removed his helmet completely, revealing a face lined with the same geometric patterns as Nira's. "The progressives are long gone," Nira finished. "Their consciousness uploads were corrupted centuries ago.
They're it.
Only us now what remains of the Hellions, scattered among the stars." She offered her hand to the Guardian, and a choice. Outside, the derelict ship began to pulse with new energy, its ancient systems fully awakened. Finn felt the whisper blade change in his grip, becoming lighter, clearer somehow. "What happens now?" he asked. Nira turned to him, her violet eyes shining with something that looked remarkably like hope. "Now," she smiled, taking his free hand in hers. "Now we stop running. Now we rebuild." "The Hellions have hidden long enough?" She glanced around, at the ship, which hummed with renewed purpose. "And you, Finn Reeves, Saxadental hero, reluctant companion, genetic miracle, what will you do?" Finn looked at the whisper blade, then at their intertwined fingers, and finally at Nira's face, the face that had changed his life in ways he was only beginning to understand. "I think," he said slowly, "I'd like to see what happens when ancient warriors and salvagers work together." The ship's engines ignited, propelling them toward a future neither of them could have imagined alone, one where broken chains became bridges, and whispers from the void became songs of new beginnings.